Welcome to the Grounding Journey podcast, where we dive into real, honest, and soul-nourishing discussions about the transitions and transformations that shape a woman's life. Here you'll find stories of resilience, self-discovery, and empowerment as we explore the journeys of women like you, women who are navigating the shifts of midlife with grace, courage, and authenticity. We'll share lessons learned, mindful actions taken, and how we celebrate the adventure of this new chapter. Before we begin, I wanted to share something special with you. If you've been feeling the tug to explore living a more full and vibrant life, let me introduce you to the My Happy Life Box. My Happy Life Box is your pathway to uncover fresh avenues carefully designed to inspire a holistic approach to health and happiness. Visit myhappylifebox.com to learn more about our welcome offers. You'll find the link in the show notes. Now on with it. I'm Chris Greer, host of the Grounding Journey podcast and creator of the My Happy Life Box. I'm so excited you're here. Let's get started. Thank you, friends, for joining us, and welcome to today's episode of Grounding Journey. I am so excited to have Maureen here with me. And, our journey together has been kind of interesting and fun. We met at a yoga festival in New York, which was a 12-hour drive for my husband and I in 2021, I think?
It was either 21 or 22.
Yeah. And so we've just kind of been in correspondence since then. And I've watched you bloom in your journey and really stepping into what's next for you. So I'm so excited that you're here to share all that with me today.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's been fun getting to know you too.
Yeah. Well, and you are the one, for people who don't know about our business, we do yoga festivals, we vend, we have a monthly subscription box. And you've bought from us at our show and found a huge typo in one of my card decks and thankfully alerted me because it was the first real big show we'd done and I was able to fix it before they were out in mass production. And then when you subscribe to the subscription box, we had some glitches on that. So you have always been my learning grace that helps me with so much grace and just patience to figure out what Matthew and I are doing. So it's been a journey for me and a joy to have you alongside of me instead of somebody else who's like, and it just shows your personality and your soul, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been fun. Yeah, it's been fun getting to know you, and I've really enjoyed your palette and getting to your box. That's just amazing. I've had other subscription boxes before, and it's always a hit and miss of what you're going to receive. And yours is always high quality, and the thoughtfulness and the energy behind it. And even if it's something I can't use, it's wonderful enough to give as a gift to somebody.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that was a great plug for the box. So thanks. But let's talk more about you. So, and I love that you are a nurse and that you have reinvented yourself in retirement. So tell me though, as you've reinvented yourself and as people get to know you, who do you want them to see you as a person? I see you as this wonderful space of grace for me, but what do you want others to see you as and know you as your family?
Just a person who just is here to serve to the highest and best, as best as my humanness can bloom in this lifetime to do, I guess. I think, I'm a mother, I'm a nurse, I'm a Reiki practitioner, those types of things. And those are all the things that, I do in this lifetime. But I think I'm compassionate towards others who are less fortunate. And I try to empower that, I guess, or people who are who are kind of on their journeys, but not really sure of their journey, to try to empower them as best I can without putting my thoughts or my opinions, because everybody has their own way in life and they have their own journey that they have to follow, but to be a support for them, whether it's family members or friends or clients.
I love that. And I imagine a lot of that found its ground in being a mom and being a nurse and just naturally nurturing and caring for people over the years, because you exude that energy from somebody who's met you and hung out with you a little bit. I definitely can see that with you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your journey because I think that going from being a nurse to being a Swami um, is really kind of a neat journey. And I don't actually know that much about your journey. So let's start with explaining what a Swami is and what you're doing these days.
Okay. So here, I think in India, being a Swami is a whole different thing. But it really is just taking vows um, of dedicating your life to service to a God, and everything that you do is for God. Which in our lifetime, that's really what our purpose is. We're servants on this life, but it's just a more of a commitment to yourself. So it's kind of like here in this country, you would think of someone who was a nun or a priest. That's the same type of thing. So you dedicated your life to that. Um, so it's mostly a life of service, which I think most of us are going that way anyway in life, because we're finding that being in service is so
Mhm.
uplifting and empowering, and a way to raise the consciousness of the world for things to
Yeah.
be better. Yeah.
Well, and you used a couple words I want us to clarify a little bit more. You used the word
Hmm.
God, none, um,
Hmm.
and you are actually in the Kriya Yoga tradition.
Hmm.
So explain that relevance because I don't want people just to think you're a nun or in the Christian
Right.
faith or something. I want you to
Right.
explain that a
Right.
little bit more.
So Kriya Yoga really, so Kriya means action, yoga is union. So it's the actions that we take for union. And Paramahansa Yogananda came to the United States, and that was his mission in this lifetime. He came in 1920, was to show that Christianity here in the West and what they teach in the Bhagavad Gita and are really the same thing, and because we all are connected as one. And so that was his purpose. His journey was so. Um, the Kriya Yoga here, we have a Kriya Yoga meditation center, which is called the Assisi Institute, and that's where I discovered Kriya Yoga, and my journey began on all of this. And what they do is they meld mystical Christianity with it, because that was Yogananda's mission, is to meld the two together. So that's what they do. So many places will just be Kriya Yoga, or some places will be just Christianity or mystical Christianity, but we meld the two together because that was what Yogananda's mission was.
I love that.
And so we do a lot of the Hindu traditional stuff here, but we also honor the mystical Christian part of things too. Right. So for me, I use the word God, but other people, it could be spirit, whatever word fits for them. That's, certainly what, was comfortable for them.
Yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to kind of have you educate us a little bit on it. Because I use the word God because
Hmm.
I grew up in a church, but God doesn't mean biblical God to me. It means
Hmm.
higher power. So I just
Hmm.
wanted to kind of clarify that
Yeah.
um,
Right.
so that people understood what we were talking about. Now, another word you use that I'd love some more explanation on is mystical Christianity.
Hmm. Well, so it's not, there's Christianity that's kind of, what's the word I want to use? Dogmatic.
Hmm.
Where mystical Christianity, you kind of it's the mystery of it all, right? It's kind of
Hmm.
mystery. You could look at Saint Francis, really was a mystic type person. So that type of thing. Teresa of Avila, Mother Teresa, even though they were kind of like in a Catholic tradition, they
Hmm.
still were more mystics, and how we embrace all. There's no inclusive, it's all inclusive. There's no separation of, like, where sometimes when you get into dogmatic type stuff, there's the rigidity of that type of stuff,
Hmm.
which it is fine, and it's not a criticism of it's a difference.
Yeah. Well, and that's what this whole conversation is really about is to
Hmm.
educate and enlighten on um, more beliefs. Because if we all
Hmm.
have beliefs that are peaceful and we're coming from a sense of service and a sense of being in service, then it's great to have different beliefs. And
Right, because how
so,
boring would it be if we didn't? If we all had the same thoughts and the same feelings and the same beliefs, the world would be so boring.
yeah, I actually was using my Abraham Hicks card deck this morning. And the
Hmm.
card that I picked, I love this because it didn't even register to me until we were talking now, is it talks about how we all need to have different beliefs and come together with them because if we didn't, it would limit the expansion. That
Hmm.
by having different beliefs that are all of a form of peace, it expands the universe, it expands our consciousness. And that's really important. So I'm super glad that we're having this conversation. And after we get done and I go pull that card again and tell Matthew about our conversation, he'll laugh. Because we were like, I get that. And of course, he wanted to tie it back to the elections. And I'm like, no, that's harm. That's not harming.
That's soul energy.
Yeah. So having this conversation now is really relevant for me. So let's, because I think one of the most common questions I get from people, this is going to be a multi-part question, and I think it'll be a good conversation, is when I tell them I do yoga and meditation, they question it. Well, I'm Christian and yoga is a religion and I can't do that. Or how do you believe in both? And I think that's always a neat conversation because I was raised in the church until I was in 6th grade. And then my parents said, and I've talked about this in the podcast before, then my parents said, you can pick your religion, like pick your choice, find something, explore it, but find something, which led me from the age of about 13 to I am 48 today of really, well, not today, Dave, but as of, my birthday was actually last week though. But, I went from 13 to 48 and it's been a journey of exploration. And I've had the benefit of a buffet, so when you look at my belief plate, it's multicolored. It's got all sorts of different textures because I was given that by my parents. I know there are lots of other people who have not been given that, who were of one faith and now don't feel resonating with it. So that's a very large struggle to deconstruct and reconstruct. And I'm sure I went through that in my 20s when I decided I didn't agree with scripture and I wanted to understand more, like the Bhagavad Gita. I love some of those. So let's talk about what your background was growing up.
Sure. I was raised in a Catholic family. My mother especially was very strict Catholic. And I knew as a child, some of the things just didn't make sense to me. But, back then you just didn't question anything. And I followed Catholicism right along because that's what I knew. But as I was getting older and older, and I raised my daughter in a Catholicism, but same as you. But once she got to be in high school, I just let her, I said the same thing. You can be whatever you want to be, just follow whatever. I mean, if you want to be Jewish or Buddhist or whatever, that's fine. You have a basis now. So now you can go and explore what works for you. But about that time too, I found that the Catholicism really wasn't, there was something missing. It wasn't like nurturing my soul. And so for a long time, I really didn't do anything. I just kind of like did my own thing at home, prayed here and that. And then over time, I just felt, no, I really need a connection of something other than just doing my stuff at home alone, because that's really kind of isolated and that only goes so far. But then I was always worried I was going to end up into some kind of a cult thing, because you just don't know. I think a lot of times when people are searching, that can happen to people. So, because I think some people can take advantage of someone knowing that they're in that searching phase of their life type thing. And then finally, I just, all the things just aligned. It was, it would be too long of a story to get into in our podcast, but for this conversation, but all the stars aligned. And I just found myself very near to where this Assisi Institute was, and finally explored it to find out what it was all about, and just felt like I had come home. And through the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda and our spiritual director here, it's actually made me have a deeper understanding of the Catholic faith that I grew up in. Not that, so I don't really have a lot of angst towards it like I used to, but I also feel like it's too bad they didn't teach that way when we were children, because that would have been very powerful as children to learn about these things in that way. So that's just my experience, and that doesn't, so I'm not putting down any religion or faith in this. This is just my experience with it. So for me, it's nice. So for me, over at the Assisi Institute, it's nice to have that little bit of that mystical Christianity, because it still blends in a little bit of my background from where I was. But with my new journey of, I'm always saying, I think I probably in another lifetime lived in India, because I'm very connected to this type of stuff. And the chanting and the Sanskrit words and all that type of stuff. So So that's how my journey just went. It was just a natural evolution through this journey, and finding that it's all okay. Everything is all okay. And we're all, and the greatest power anyway is love. That if we can just all be loving no matter where we are, then, because God's love.
Yeah.
Whatever your belief in God is, as a higher power, whatever, as a child, I thought he was this old man up in heaven sitting up above the clouds type thing, but I no longer believe that, right? I think as children, it's kind of like a different version of a Santa Claus was what was in our minds, regardless of what faith you were. But, we've learned as we've evolved and developed, and it's really kind of amazing to me how, as we're ready for these new levels, they just unfold for us. Things fall into place for us. And things present, like they say, the teacher will present themselves to you. So when you're going to be learning something, and that could be someone, the teacher could be the person that you struggle to have a relationship with, that there's that little bit of friction there. That could be your greatest teacher.
Yes. My first mother-in-law was my teacher. She was my first teacher to see the difference between light and dark. And now I have lots of great teachers that I enjoy, but then I just validate that teachers do not always come in the version you expect, want, or think they will.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, and yoga is not a religion. Because I know you said that it's not a religion. Yoga is, so there's 8 limbs of yoga, and I don't have them all memorized. I think you do that better. And I don't do asana yoga, which is the poses, on a regular basis. I do them here and there. So there's all these different levels of yoga of what you can do. And really, it's kind of just practicing like the yamas and the niyamas, which is similar to that's similar to, but not the same as the 10 Commandments, where the big thing is ahimsa, do no harm to anything, no harm to animals, peoples, anything. So.
Yeah. Well, and I want to throw a side note in before we get back into the conversation. So if you're on video, you have seen my new kitten, Littlest, walking back and forth across the screen. And if you're listening to audio, you may hear her purring and meowing. It's not a cat you're about to run over. It's not audio. She's just sitting on the desk purring. So I want to give that to the audience so they don't think something's wrong with the recording. She is just sitting here loving. And I brought her to our conversation because I thought she'd really enjoy it. But I just want to throw that out there if the audience is picking that up in the microphone. Okay, so one of the things, I love that we're getting to have this yoga conversation, and I wasn't sure where our conversation was going to go today, but I should have known this is where it would go. And also, let me say, I follow you and your organization, and I'm afraid I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Asani, is that correct?
Pardon me?
The institute that you're at?
The Assisi Institute.
Assisi. Okay, I know how to spell it, but you see words like that you don't know how to pronounce.
Like Assisi, Italy.
Okay, gotcha. And I've watched it. It does not look even remotely cult-like. That you have amazing events. Yeah. So I've definitely followed you guys on Facebook for quite some time, and it looks like a really neat organization. And there's often that I comment on your posts, I hate that I'm 12 hours away because I would love to be closer and be able to get up there and do some fun stuff. So one of the things you mentioned when we were talking was chanting in the yogic tradition. And that's what I love about the yogic tradition, because the difference between praying and chanting was something that I really found neat as I was working through figuring out what I was going to put on my serving plate of my beliefs. And just to explain it to our listeners, what I've learned is when we pray, and you and I both said God, higher power, because I definitely pray to my higher power. I need his guidance, her guidance. I think of higher power as masculine and the universe as feminine. I don't know why I have those two, maybe because we were both raised in Catholicism. But to me, there's two different, it's kind of like Mother Earth and Father Son or something, So anyway, when we pray, we are praying to our higher power, asking for guidance, asking for strength, asking for them to do the work for us of guidance. And what I learned about yoga is yogic chanting is calling out that strength that lies within us. So instead of asking for it from someone else, it's bringing those qualities, like if you're chanting to Ganesha or any of the other chants, that's my favorite one.
Mhm.
It's bringing that strength that lies within us out instead of asking for it. And that was the big difference that I learned through my yoga training. And that was a really powerful thing for me of how I could have both on my plate. I could
Mhm.
pray and chant because they
Mhm.
don't contradict each other. They're both very relevant for different times and different things.
Right, right. And prayer is kind of like your conversation with God,
Yes,
right?
that's a
It's like
great
a
way to say
conversation
it.
with God, where like meditation is your connection to God or higher
Hmm.
source, right? And then chanting really is because most of the chants that you do, or most of us do, are in Sanskrit. And Sanskrit
Hmm.
usually not, it's very hard to translate them into English. You can a little bit, but sometimes they lose. But it's not meant to be translated. It's the power of the energy of the words, because everything is energy and power, right? So as we chant those, and I know people say, well, why do you chant the same thing over and over again? Because you're infusing yourself with the energy of that energy. So like if you're chanting to Ganesha, you're infusing yourself. The more you chant the chant of Ganesha to yourself, you're infusing his energy into you, and so that just goes forth from you after as you do that. Whether you're chanting to Ganesha or Shiva or Lakshmi or whoever you're chanting to, you're taking on it. So many in the yoga tradition will chant 108 times, 108, because there's 108 chakras. And it's very auspicious in the Hindus and their faiths to chant 108 times. It makes it more powerful.
Hmm. Well, and one of the things, shoot, you said something and I really wanted to revisit, and then I just totally blanked on it.
It will come.
Okay. I was like, it will come back when it's completely relevant to share
Yeah.
about that. It now it's going to bug me that I can't remember, and it's going to stump me moving forward. So chanting, I think, is really neat in that
Mm-hmm.
sense of bringing that energy out. Oh, I know what it was. When you
Mm-hmm.
chant,
Mm-hmm.
you are joining the vibration
Right.
of all those who have chanted before you that chant and all those who are chanting that after you. So it
Mm-hmm.
connects you on this, in my vision, the silver thread through time.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, prayer is a conversation with you and your higher
Mm-hmm.
power. It's one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening in the now. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's another difference for me about the
Mm-hmm.
two of prayer versus
Mm-hmm.
chanting. And I've been doing another chant, um, and it's amazing. It's for helping release fear and
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, and it's
Mm-hmm.
been fantastic for me. So there's lots of different chants, and like you
Mm-hmm.
said, in Sanskrit, the one thing that I sometimes have a qualm with is you go to yoga class and they want you to chant with them, but don't explain what the chant means or what it
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they're not invoking anything negative, but it's always learning what that chant means and seeing how it
Mm-hmm.
resonates for you. It's really
Right.
important in the education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's why kirtans are very nice if you can go to kirtans, because most generally the person who's leading the kirtan will give an explanation of what the chant is going to be before they chant it. And they
Hmm.
start the whole call and response chanting.
Yeah, I love it. Well, share a little bit about your journey because I know that you live on site at the Institute.
Mm-hmm.
How you went from retirement to this is what I want to do and this is where I am because you sold your house and you live there
Mm-hmm.
now. So share a little bit
Right.
about that with me.
Well, when I realized I needed to leave nursing, because, this would be a whole different conversation, but, it just was to the point where I just can't do this anymore. And I really wasn't ready in a place financially to retire, but I knew I needed to because I wasn't sure if I had to work till I retired to that perfect age of retirement, that my health wise, I would be in a state to be
Mm-hmm.
actually enjoy retirement. And I
Mm-hmm.
had a plan to reinvent myself. I was already trained in Reiki and some other energy healing modalities. Um, but I did that all without an intention of having a practice or teaching it. So I retook everything. This was during COVID, so I had to do it all online.
Mhm.
So I did it with William Rand, actually, and it was fabulous. So I
Yeah.
retook my levels 1 and 2, and master class with him, so that I could have the proper intention. And that's how I feel like everything is intention. Um, and so then I got that all set up and was able to do that, so that when I retired, then I also had someone that I've been seeing for years for my own, receiving my own energy work. And she has one wellness center, which is where I practice at. But I asked her to be my mentor because I said, I've always worked for people. I have no idea how to, do a business. And she
Mhm.
very happily said, yes, I'll mentor you, type thing. And so, I have a space in her wellness center. Um, and so that just went into everything just evolved and progressed. And the Reiki that I do, I think it goes along well with the Kriya Yoga. Um, and so now I'm of service in a different way. For years, I was a service as a nurse and caring for people and helping people in that way. And I used to always, quite often, I would just talk to God and say, thank you so much for allowing me to care for your sick people. So now it's
Mhm.
thank you for allowing me to be the vehicle for people, or the tool in their toolbox for their wellness journey. Because it's not about now helping them because they're sick, but helping them on their wellness journeys through going within. So it's, meditation, it's, energy healing work, that type of thing. And it just naturally evolved into all of this. And so I really have, so for my so-called retirement years, it's really busy and very fulfilling, and it's very joyful. I live most of my days, and we all have a bad day here and there, but I live in a joyful state. And so
Mhm.
selling my house was, I knew that I really didn't want to have that responsibility of the house. I still had a mortgage on it. It's going to be retiring. My income wasn't going to be, I just thought, and I just felt so much peace when I'm in this place, at the CSC Institute. And I knew that would also help me evolve and go deeper in my spiritual journey. So the
Mhm.
combination of all that. And I used to, and people thought I was crazy because they never heard of anybody doing that, selling their house and moving into a meditation center. And it's not like we're open, it's very limited people live here. It's not like an apartment complex or that type of thing. It's just people who are really on this path and are looking to deepen their spiritual path, um, live here. So there were very few people. So we're kind of like caretakers for the building too. Because when it's, nobody's here, we're kind of like, making sure the doors are locked and, all that type of stuff. Um, but it's a community living, but it's also, you have a lot of your own privacy. So it's not like you're in community all the time. But
Mhm.
you have people there. That was another thing. I was getting older. What was I going to do being in my house by myself if something happened to me? I'd have to
Mhm.
call 911 or something. Where here, there's someone somewhere that I can just, reach out to, and someone will be here in 2 seconds, type thing.
Yeah.
So there's that security of that, but it really was for the deepening of my spiritual path. And then things just evolved. I did not come into this with an intention of becoming a Swami. That was probably the furthest thing from my mind. But it's just interesting how things evolve. And when you follow the guidance of your higher power, and you trust it, walk with faith and trust it, you just see things unfold in ways that you never could have imagined.
It takes a lot of courage and confidence to do that,
Mm,
to feel guided, to not deny it,
mhm.
and to move forward with that.
Right.
And so I admire that you have been able to do that, that you were able to walk away from your career because you knew it was what was best for you. You were able to sell
Mhm.
your house because you knew that was where you were being led. And so I'm grateful that you get to share your conversation today, because I believe there are lots of souls out there who hear it really loud but are still not ready to fully surrender to that. So if you could talk to the you before you fully surrendered,
Mhm.
like, what would you say to those souls who are on the edge of jumping off the cliff, but still just looking down, afraid?
Um, you are totally worthy, automatically, of all the love and the life that you want to live,
Mm,
that you're meant to live, because our souls came here with the purpose of what we're here for. And
yeah.
part of our journey is to learn what our soul's purpose was, why we came here. And so much of I've done a lot of worthy work in the recently,
Mhm.
But I've also learned that through my spirituality, I was developing my worthiness, but not really understanding what it was at the time till I started doing some of this worthy work. And society has really created a venue, I guess you could call it, of people feeling not worthy.
Yeah.
Especially for women. If you look back on, women were not considered complete and whole if there wasn't a man, either your father or a husband. You couldn't own your own property. You couldn't vote. You couldn't buy a car. You couldn't have a loan. You couldn't buy your own house as a woman. Years and years ago. And, I can remember as a teenager, I was probably about 18, when women finally were able to get their own credit card for the first time. So
Oh,
that was like
wow.
that was like in the 1960s. So,
Yeah.
um, so, so society has kind of made that for whatever reason. It's not to say that, ooh, so it's hard for us to come into our own worthiness, that we are deserving of a rich life, of whatever that is. And it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you have to be some, you know, big mogul who makes millions and billions of dollars. That's not a sign of a successful life or a joyful
Right.
life. I don't, I live a pretty simple life, but my life is very joyful. And I know that I'm being guided and people are being helped who need to be helped. The people will find you. People will find you that need that need what you have to offer, because there's someone out there that needs us, and we all have a gift. And
Hmm.
when we think we don't, but our experiences qualify us.
Yeah.
Whatever that experience is, whether you were depressed and you pulled yourself up from depression and built your life up, you can that qualifies you to be of service to somebody else and helping them on their journey. So it's all meant to be, and and trust and just find what works for you, because everybody has their own way. There's no right way or wrong way of finding it. But to keep, I had this. I don't see visions very often, but I was in a meditation about 2 weeks ago now, and there was a lot of talk around. We had been in a retreat about faith and walking in faith and that type of thing. And all of a sudden I could see myself, and it was like putting one foot in for, keep moving, just keep moving, one foot in front of the other, walk with faith. Um, but whatever your dream is, your dream is your goal. If you're at that age where you're thinking, I don't like my career anymore, and but I always wanted to do X, Y, or Z, then go ahead and do that. Try it. Put the energy, if you have to, journal about it, so that you're writing the words down, so the words have words have meaning and power and energy, and maybe say those
Hmm.
words out loud, whatever that is. But just to start with the journaling of it and putting the intention out there, because then intention carries a vibration, and then it goes out there and things will manifest as they're supposed to. And then
Yeah.
we just need to be aware and awake when things present themselves to us, that this is the person that's supposed to help you with this. Just like the person that I asked to mentor me, I was laying at her table receiving a Reiki session, and I kept hearing this voice, ask her to mentor you. And I kept saying back, no, she's too busy. She doesn't have time for that. Ask her to mentor you. After the third time I heard ask her to mentor you, I said, okay, fine. So I asked her to mentor me, and she without hesitation said yes. And I went, well, that was easy. But I had to hear this voice in my head tell me this 3 times to ask her to mentor me.
Yeah. I love that. Well, and that's also part of the validating worthiness of, sometimes it takes us a little while to get comfortable with it,
Mm-hmm.
to remove the shackles and jump. And so if any of our listeners are in that spot, like, we're cheering you on. We are
Right,
supporting you from afar and believe in
right.
you, and
And you can
give
do
you
it.
grace that it's scary because you've done
Right,
it. I continue to do it.
right.
Um,
And it's all grace. It's all grace.
mhm.
It really is. Even the icky
Yeah.
spots, it's all grace.
Yeah. Well, I know that our listeners are going to definitely enjoy this conversation. I feel like you've done some educating for us to understand a little bit more, and sharing about your journey and your inspiration. And that's what I really think gives us these soulful chats that we get to have on the conversation.
Hmm.
So thank you so much for showing up and doing that. And because I know how I'm drawn to your energy, I believe that my listeners are really going to want to connect with you. And I encourage them because you just radiate this glow. Where can people find you? Tell them what you're doing in the world. I know you just recently did your Reiki Master
Hmm.
certification, where you did your class, and you do Reiki classes. So if people are
Hmm.
interested in that, Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing in the world as service.
Sure. Yeah. So my practice is called Peace and Wellness from Within, because I believe in healing from the inside out. Um, so I offer Reiki services for people. I also do a yoga nidra. When I took my meditation certification, I fell in love with the whole yoga nidra part of it and just was like, oh my gosh. So I actually do it's a group thing that I do. It's a Reiki infused yoga nidra. So it's very
Mm,
powerful. I also
mm,
offer as a session, like, and people who have experienced this notice the difference between just a Reiki session and a Reiki session where I guide them through a 15-minute yoga nidra first. It puts them in that very deep parasympathetic state, so the Reiki just really flows right in. And then I'm going to be actually doing here in Rochester a Reiki infused yoga nidra in an energy enhancement room. So if any of your
mm.
listeners aren't familiar with an energy enhancement room, they can YouTube that and see what that's all about. So that's another level. It's all frequency and vibrations and affirmations and solfeggio music to all help with the healing process. And so I'm going to be offering that in September. And then, so I offer that. I do meditations. I guide people in meditations. I do meditation. I have a meditation class that meets once a month. I do a little bit of spiritual mentoring. I offer Reiki classes periodically. I usually do Reiki's level 1 and 2 twice a year, and then I do master class once a year. I do half day workshops. I've been a co organizer of a retreat called Awaken Your Soul Retreat. We did that last year, and this year I'm not sure if we're going to go forward with that in 2025, but that was a really nice experience. So I do all that, and it's on Facebook as Peace and Wellness from Within, and I'm also on Instagram that way. I don't do as much on Instagram. I prefer Facebook. That's just me. I don't really love Instagram, but and then my website is peaceandwellnessfromwithin.org.
Well, you definitely have a lot out there that you bring and sharing with the world. So I
Yeah.
am grateful that you're doing the work you're doing in the world. And I want our listeners, as we mentioned, those who are on the brink, who are struggling with what does fulfillment feel like?
Mhm.
What does joy feel like? You can be our poster child and our like, just
Aw,
jump, just do it.
just do it.
And there's like multiple cliches I want to think of is um, jump and you'll build your wings on the way down. And there's the when I get to the end of my life, I want and asked what I did, I want to say I loved.
Hmm.
And where you said living in a joyful state, that's what we're here for. We're
Hmm.
here to find that joy and that peace in life and find the peace within.
Right.
So,
Find the peace within. Right. Yeah. So they can go to my website and find different offerings that I have if anybody's interested. And I do also offer distant Reiki sessions for people. So if someone lives like you live and they wanted a Reiki session with me, or whatever of my other offerings, those types of things I do distant.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for the
Thank
conversation.
you
Thank
so
you for
much
the
for this
education.
conversation. Oh,
Yeah.
well, and
It's good to
hopefully
see
it's
your
helpful
face
for people.
too.
I know we don't see each other's face that often, that's for sure, or hear our voices. Once in a while we chat on the phone, but yeah, it's nice to hear each other's voice too.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
so good to see you. And I'm glad that littlest, the kitten, got to hang out with us. I think she really
Yeah.
felt soothed by the conversation too. So
Yeah.
thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do, because you help bring people together. I still that summit that you did a couple of years ago, that was still like the best summit I've ever attended. And I can't believe that was your first summit that you put together. The people that you got and did, and the quality of what they offered, it's just mind blowing.
Yeah. Thank you. Matthew made me promise not to do it again
Oh,
because he had to do all
too
the
much
tech
work.
stuff to it.
It was too much work, but it was a very special, and I'm so grateful that I actually, paid for the whatever so that I have access to those videos from people. I don't get onto it as often as I should because I get too busy, but
Yeah.
I do like knowing that I have that access to go back to some of, because they all had so much wisdom and knowledge, and not only that, they just had so much love. I don't know how you found all those people and put them all together, but it was fabulous.
Well, and synchronicity. I love that you said that because just 2 days ago, I was thinking I need to like rebuild that and put it just up for sale again. So Maybe this conversation will light a fire for me to actually do that and have it available. So we'll just say, if you want to learn more about the summit, check out grindingjourneypodcast.com because we'll have a link there by the time I get this up. So,
Oh, good.
yeah, that'll be my inspiration.
Okay.
Well, thank you again. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. God bless. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you for joining me in the conversation today. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to subscribe to the Grounding Journey podcast to make sure you get access to all of our upcoming episodes and some really cool past ones. While you're there, I'd appreciate if you'd leave a review.